What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
So I went on a date with this guy and everything was going very smooth considering, especially after my disclosure that I'm a transgender woman. But everything just changed so fast when he said something like, I've never dated a black and a transgender woman before, but you look pretty good for both and I'm willing to take the chance. I was like, and then to make it even worse, he said, my parents cannot know about us because it might be too much for them to take in. So then I asked him, is it because I'm black or trans? And then he was like, both. And I was like, and then he had the effing audacity to say, can I see your, it's okay if it's bigger than mine. What the hell?
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
I told a guy I was sexually assaulted, and he was like, well, yeah, I get that. I mean, I'd rape you too. You're like really hot.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
Okay, so there's a good chance this isn't the worst because I feel like I've had a lot of experience with this over the years, but one that I always remember is this guy that I had known for a really long time but hadn't seen in ages comes up to me, and I was like 15 or something, so also underage. And he must have just turned into a raging douche at some point because I thought it'd be a nice conversation, but instead he looks at me, gestures to just all of me while saying, if you didn't have all of this going on, I would like totally fuck you. And I'm like, what do you expect here? Like, oh my god, if I completely change who I am as a person, you would fuck me? No. Like, I honestly was just dumbfounded, resisted the urge to knee him in the crotch and just went, okay, bye, and left. Because, like...
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
Okay, I absolutely hate when men say this and they think it's a compliment, but it's so offensive. So this one time I was rushing to the DMV and I was stopped by a man, and he basically, asked, oh, can I get your Instagram and your phone number? And I'm like, no, sorry, politely, I'm in a rush. And he goes, are you full Asian? And I'm like, yeah, I'm full Chinese. And he's like, wow, you're really pretty for an Asian woman, and you don't typically see them with like a big... What?
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
I got one. So I was hooking up with this guy, and we were about to, get there. He pulls me on top of him, whispers in my ear, I'm not afraid of big girls. Get out! Why would you say that to me in that moment?
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
Well, this raw tofu really looks at me and goes, I don't date Indian women, but for you I'd make an exception. Well, you mean to tell me that you looked past all the sunflowers in the garden, the roses, the earth, the sun goddesses, the red lipsticks, the spice queens, the milk and honey, the saffron and silk. You looked past it all and you picked me. You chose me. You love me. Oh, well, my artificial vanilla wafer, I am so honored. I've been waiting for this day my entire life. Now we can finally go to your family gatherings and I can be the only brown person there. And we can eat bland food for the rest of our lives, and maybe we can joke about 7-Eleven and 9/11 and about all other minorities, because that sounds like so much fun, and none of this would be possible if you hadn't picked me.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
This was before I came out. Went on a date with this guy and we decided to just have a couple drinks at the bar. At the end of the date, he wanted to pay for his drinks and my drinks. So I said, no man, I'm gonna pay for my drinks. And he asked, why? And I said, because I believe in equality. And he went, thank God. For a moment, I thought you were a feminist.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
So I was talking to this guy and we were dating or whatever, and we had went on 2 or 3 dates. And by now, I figured, it was the time to tell him that I have herpes. So I told him that I had herpes, and I said, if it's a deal breaker, that's cool, just tell me. And he was like, well, it's a deal breaker, but you're a really strong person, because if I were you, I would kill myself.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
So with me being a plus size person my whole life, there are so many stories to choose from, but this one actually happened about 3 years ago. So I was with this guy and he was laying his head on my butt like it was a pillow, because people like doing that. I have a big butt and I get that. But anyways, he turns to me and he says, I love your body. It is just so soft and big and comfy. I just love it. And I'm not offended. I'm just like, oh, thank you. It is all those things, and it's nice. But this guy proceeds to say, it's like you're a big couch. And I'm like, did this motherfucker just call me a couch?
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
So, 3 years ago, I had gone on this blind date with my friend's coworker. I had seen my Instagram pictures and he was really into me or whatever, so we met up. When I got there, I guess he was mad no one warned him that I was tall, and he was 5'7" and I'm 6 feet, so there was a little bit, it wasn't that big of a difference, I think. He was at the end of the day, he was you're so beautiful and perfect, and you're literally everything I'm looking for. I just can't look past your height. What do you say to that?
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
For clarification, I used to be 270 pounds, but I went on a date and the guy said, and I quote, I don't usually date fat girls, but I made an exception for you because you're so pretty. And then he told me I should be lucky that he made that exception. And then he told me, this is the icing on the cake, he said, oh, look, it's like we're living the real life version of Hairspray.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that...
So I'm talking to this guy, I go over his house, we're just playing card games, chilling. And he looks at me, he's like, do you always wear makeup? And I'm like, no, only if I have somewhere to go. And he's like, well, do you never not wear it? And I'm like, yeah, when I'm by myself chilling. And he's like, oh, I really want to see you without it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you could. And he's like, why don't you take it off? I'm like, well, I don't have any makeup wipes. And he's like, oh, my sister got some in the bathroom, we should go. And I'm like, oh no, I'm good, it's cool. And he's like, no, I really want to see you without it, let's go. And I'm like, I'm good, this takes me a minute. And he's like, come on, Drea, let's go, I want to see you without. And I'm like, okay, fine, we'll take it off. Mind you, I'm only taking off my face makeup because my eye makeup, I'm not doing that. And then he's like, wow, you're so pretty without makeup. And I'm like, you idiot, because if I were to take off my eye makeup, I'd be looking like this panda at the bottom.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
This one day in middle school, I had wore body dress to class, right? And I'm just sitting down doing my little work whatnot, right? And this boy comes up to me and was like, yo, you got a fat ass. If you was light skinned, I would definitely date you. Huh? What the fuck? And I'm thinking he joking, right? He's not dead ass, right? He's like, why you mad? What's wrong? What the fuck do you mean what's wrong? Why would you just come up to me and say that shit? And if I was light-skinned, I still want to give you a piece of this ass. Now move.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
Okay, I'm gonna get in trouble for telling you this because Preston legitimately thought that this was a compliment. In his heart, he was saying this genuinely to be nice to me, but it wasn't nice. I mean, in his eyes, it was nice, but it was not to me. Anyways, so he's checking out the ladies, loving on them. He's like, oh my God, I love them. And I'm like, I know. And he looks me dead in the eyes and goes, oh, I just love your natural sag. So obviously, my reaction was not pleasant. And he was like, oh, no, I just love, backpedal. It was too late. Anyways, I told his whole stream. They obviously got mad at him, and he's gonna get mad at me for telling you. But you need to know. It's not a compliment. Don't say it.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
When I tell a guy that I'm fat, and they're like, okay, I'd still hit. Or they're like, if you lost weight, you take over. They're like, yeah, but your face is pretty. I'm pretty in the face, but my body's fucking disgusting, apparently. Not apparently, it is. It is. Thanks. But yeah, men think that they're complimenting you and saying I still hit. Sir, you fuck your hand. You fuck pillows, sponges, peanut butter, sandwiches, animals, tailpipes. I'm not really. That isn't really the serve you think it is, sir.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
This shit is funny, but low-key hurt my feelings. But anyway, you know, we was doing it what it do. You know, touching, kissing, whatever. This motherfucker gonna come up to my ear talking about, I love me a fat bitch. I said, get the fuck off me, and I went home.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
This was all the way back in high school, but I remember this one time in my class, me and my female friend were talking about colorism. And this boy, the same color as me, had the audacity to be like, yeah, I didn't really like dark-skinned girls until I saw Promise. Now I love chocolate. Really?
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
Bruh, back when I first started my account, like making content, I had the weirdest encounter. So I can admit, I guess kind of sort of, that I'm like attractive enough that guys and girls will hit on me sometimes. Now, I'm straight, but if a gay man tells me that I look good, I'm not gonna be mad. Like, that's a compliment, bro. Thank you. And at the time I started my account, I was getting a lot of compliments from both genders. So this guy DMs me, he says, hey, I noticed he had like an LGBTQ plus like flag in his bio. So I was like, all right, this is probably gonna be someone shooting their shot. That I have no problem with. He said, hey, I said, what's up? Cause I also gave out like advice sometimes. So I figured it might be that. At this point, I don't know how. The conversation goes from 1 to 100. He says, you're black, so I know you got a huge ass. I was like, wait a minute. Whoa, wait, huh? Oh, is it true? Come on. Is it in any way appropriate to tell a 17-year-old kid? No, it's not. Unprovoked, overly sexual compliments are always going to be weird no matter what. Ugh.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
Alright, we're at a shopping center together and he was in the toilet and I was standing like outside waiting for him, and then he comes out and he walks up to me and he's like, oh my god, like I was thinking, damn, who's this? And then I realized it was you. I was like, that's not a compliment. Like, that means you were looking at another female that's not me thinking, damn, like, who's this? Like, I don't care that it was actually me. In your head, you didn't think it was me. Like, oh.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
Funny one. It's not actually the worst thing. So I was once at this bar. I am Romanian and I live in Lithuania. So I was at the bar in Lithuania, and there is this guy, very nice guy, and came to approach me and start speaking in Lithuanian. And I said, "Atsiprašau, aš nekalbu lietuviškai, let's speak in English." So he asked me where I'm from, and I said I'm from Romania. And then he said, "Oh, you look as good as a Lithuanian though." And excuse me? Thank you for the compliment. I guess the other Romanians are ugly or what? So at this day I do appreciate the intentions, you know. Would you consider this a compliment or not? Please let me know what's your opinion. Acela, bye. Lisa.
What's a really weird thing that your body does that you're not sure anybody else's body does?
Since I was a little kid, I've been able to do this with my hands. Basically, I can crack all my fingers all the time, anytime. Watch. It starts hurting after a while, but yeah.
Rich Mom Starter Pack, Brooklyn edition. So you and your indie movie director husband are loaded. You're too intellectual for Manhattan. So you move to Brooklyn. Here's what you'll need to fit in with all the other rich moms. Firstly, you're going to need something subtle, like a $15 million townhouse in Park Slope. You'll need a car. You're going to get an Audi. Even though you're actually from Westchester, you identify as European. You'll need 40 pairs of Golden Goose, so all the other moms know you're casual. By casual, I mean you spend $530 on a pair of sneakers that look like they got run over. Tons of Ula Johnson. Don't actually make your kids lunches. Just get Sakara delivered and redistribute it in little stasher bags. Don't forget, you're raising little Persimmon and Aristotle as vegan from birth. Starbucks is for tacky Manhattanites who make all your coffee in a Chemex and then carry it around in an Ember mug, plastic shaming everybody. Now, of course, you wouldn't be caught dead in the Hamptons, but you absolutely must get a converted modern farmhouse in Hudson. It's way more chic.